The Latino population of the United States is the largest minority population. In 1848, the United States took nearly half of Mexican territory in the aftermath of the Mexican-American War, along with all the inhabitants. Mexicans living in the United States were discriminated against and treated very poorly. They were wrongly accused of crimes and punished according to those crimes. Soon, Mexicans began to retaliate with violence, but their status didn't change much. Large waves of Mexicans, Cubans, and Puerto Ricans entered the United States in the 1880s, and again in the 1920s. However, with the commencement of the Great Depression in the 1930s, a large number of those immigrants were deported. In the 1960s and 70s, Hispanic Americans began identifying themselves as Chicano and started to lobby for equal rights. During this time, Cesar Chavez led Hispanic workers in marches, and Sal Castro led the largest student walkout in American history. As a result, Latino studies were adopted as part of school curricula, and Latinos entered the political field of the United States. During the 1980s, another large wave of immigrants came into the United States from Cuba, Nicaragua, Guatemala, and El Salvador, and a mixture of Latino and American cultures started to form. As of 2015, the Latino population was 56.5 million in the United States, accounting to 17.6% of American population. The population of foreign-born Latinos decreased from 40% to 34.4% between 2000 and 2015, meaning that more people who identified as Latino or Hispanic in the United States are being born inside the states than outside. Additionally, Mexicans made up 81.1% of the Latino population in 1860, but only 65.7% in 2008, and that number is still declining. The Latino population also has the youngest population of any racial group in the United States, with 17.9 million Latinos, or about a third of the population, of the age of 18 or younger. 53% of Latinos lived in 15 metropolitan areas in 2014. California has the highest Latino population, followed by Texas and Florida, although Texas has a faster growing Latino population. After the Mexican-American War, Hispanic immigrants were encouraged to come into the United States to fill low-wage positions. Those who did come had to live in separate neighborhoods, attend separate schools, and even go to separate theaters and restaurants. While much of this segregation has ended, 52% of Latinos in 2016 still felt like they had been discriminated against. While there are many factors that could play into this feeling of discrimination, one may be that Latinos in the U.S. prefer not to be referred to as Latino, Hispanic, or Spanish. They prefer being referred to by their country of origin. They feel like the other terms feel like blanket or census terms. Another definite source of discrimination for Latinos in the U.S. is education. A PBS program on Latino Americans claimed that Latinos can either lift up or drag down the United States. It all depends on education. There have been improvements in Latino education in recent years. For example, the high school dropout rate among Latinos dropped from 32% in 2000 to 12% in 2014. Additionally, 35% of Latinos were attending college in 2014, up from 22% in 1993. Though these are achievements for the Latino population, Latino education still isn't up to the standard of other races. The Latino high school dropout rate was still almost twice that of both the Black and white populations. About half of the Latinos attending college only attend two-year schools, and only 15% have a bachelor's degree or higher. Only 52.4% of Latinos of Latinos over 25 have a high school diploma or higher, compared to 85.5% of Caucasians. There are several factors that play into discrimination against Latinos in school. One of the original factors, though it doesn't play a role today, was segregation. Latino students weren't allowed into white schools and had to attend less funded schools with fewer teachers and inadequate school supplies. In 1946, Mendez versus Westminster School District desegregated schools in California, and similar cases did the same in Texas and Arizona soon after. In 1954, Brown v. Board of Education ended segregation in all schools in the United States. Some of the factors that play into discrimination that are seen today are poverty, language, acculturation, and prejudice. First, poverty. 37.3% of poor children in schools are Latino, 2/3 of whom have parents who are foreign-born. Language is another factor. Latinos who speak little or no English receive fewer educational opportunities than those students who speak both languages or just English. This in part is due to teachers who have not been trained to help those students. Acculturation is much the same as language. Latino students have to learn a different school system, different ways of addressing teachers, different learning methods, different extracurricular activities, and different family environments. Again, many teachers aren't trained to be able to help these students. Finally, prejudice and discrimination play into Latino education. Latinos in schools with a small Hispanic population don't feel represented and feel discriminated against. Educators also tend to compare the performance of Latino students to that of white students. So what can be done to help Latino students receive equal educations? The National Education Association gives several suggestions. The first is to begin learning early, in the home. This includes teaching students or children to read before they start school. Another is to desegregate schools and neighborhoods. While official segregation is illegal, there's still much segregation due to social and economic status. Ending this type of segregation will help Latino students and their families receive better social capital. Other suggestions for improving learning conditions for Latinos are to better prepare educators to help students struggling with language and culture, integrate health and social services for low-income families, have children attend preschool, and expand and exploit the dual language program. Ending discrimination and providing equal education opportunities for Latino students isn't going to be easy. However, there have already been improvements, and we can continue to see improvements if we all do our part to provide those opportunities.